Good morning and good afternoon. This is Mark Kovich at IBM. I am part of the Internet of Things Continuous Engineering Group. Thank you for joining our webinar today on One Engineer's Quest to share best practices across the entire Raytheon enterprise. Today presenting is Alex Ivanov of Raytheon. Alex is the Operations Manager of the Systems Verification Center along with the Doors Toolkit Product Manager at Raytheon. Originally, this webinar had been scheduled for the topic of DXL tidbits, but because of extenuating circumstances, we have changed its content to best practices of doors at Raytheon. Items presented today will not include Raytheon proprietary information or its internal programs. The good thing about the webinar and its change is that it's the same presenter, Alex, who was going to do the DXL tidbits, but instead, he'll be doing the best practices on doors. Before we get started, I'd like to mention that you are in listen mode only, and that the webinar is being recorded. There will be a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. We'll be accepting questions during the Q&A part of the webcast. You can also submit your questions at any time as Alex is presenting. To ask a question, please utilize the pull down in your control panel where it says questions. You can go ahead and submit the questions. I'll be fielding those. And then when we get to Q&A, I'll go ahead and ask Alex the questions in chronological order. Let's see here. If by chance we don't have time to get to your question, you can reply to my follow-up email that I sent to all registrants of the webinar. I'll also include the presentation that Alex will utilize today, along with the web links on where we archive the recording, the video and audio recording of the webinar, along with all past Enlightenment Series webinars. So I think that pretty much covers it. Alex, you can go ahead and start.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mark. Yes, thanks a lot for having me. This is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart because it chronicles the success that I've had in terms of getting information out across Raytheon. And so Raytheon itself is a very large company, and this is actually my first job out of college. I just hit my 15-year mark, and for those of you keeping track, I started in Tewksbury, Massachusetts, where I spent 13 and a half years, and very recently, about 2 years ago, I moved from software engineering into systems engineering on the West Coast. So I'm now based out of the Los Angeles area. But so, being the fact that Raytheon is a huge company, we have many different parts of the organization. There's different business units, different departments, different sections. So needless to say, it's somewhat difficult to get ideas out across the enterprise because there's many different hierarchical structures depending where you are. So again, the focus of this talk is really sharing with you ideas and real practical examples of what I've done to get information out and to connect people. So a little bit of background on myself and really what it is I'm pushing for. So I've been I've been a software developer basically my whole career, and 13 years have been spent as a Doors database administrator. So regardless of what my role or title says exactly, what I'm really good at is managing and architecting or re-architecting Doors databases. So I love working with the Doors tool. I've been at it since version 4.1. And so in essence, the responsibility has always been support Doors on programs of various sizes. For the most part, I spent I'd say maybe 10 or 11 years managing Doors on really large-scale databases where we had hundreds of users, hundreds of modules, thousands of requirements. But really my expertise and passion revolves around the dynamic extension language, which is the DXL that comes with the Doors tool. So anybody with a Doors license can just go off and start writing scripts to try and automate what it is that they do. And so I do hope to present the other topic at some point in time in the future on the DXL tidbits. But for now, again, it's really, again, my passion relies around the fact of being able to automate Doors, so basically translate the needs of the end users of the Doors database into automation that can then be presented to them as menu items. And so I've been developing DXL for 13 years. Luckily for me now, I have developers at Raytheon, so other people that share in the excitement of automating common tasks. And so we have a small team of people that are basically trying to get reusable automation out in the hands of the users. And as I mentioned, Raytheon being a very large company, we have Doors databases across many different cities, many different networks. And so I'm really driven and excited by the opportunity to change people's perceptions on what Doors can and can't do. Because again, there's lots of great things that the Doors tool does by itself, but then when you plug in the DXL automation, you get more, basically, it's almost like having a little helper. There's functions that you're able to run. And so I'd say about maybe in 2011 is when I really started to realize that, okay, we've written some really great functions here that work well in a couple of projects in Massachusetts, but this is something that could help other programs. And so kind of my quest, the quest that I'm on, the quest I'm telling you about today is, I'd say really chronicling the past 4 years of once I had this realization of, hey, maybe this could help more people. I mean, how do you actually get your idea out that there's a better way of doing your job, and what can you do about it? So my story really started with the fact that, as I mentioned, I've been writing DXL for a long time, and but I started getting questions. I mean, so I was doing Doors support on a specific project, and the engineers that worked with me on the project would kind of come to me like, Alex, how do I do this? And I'd say, oh, there's a menu item. You could run this menu item, would show them how to do it. And so there was, again, some Q&A where I had, this was kind of the beginning of helping me break out of my shy shell, where I didn't have much confidence in myself. I was afraid that somebody's going to call me, ask me a question. I wasn't sure what the answer would be. But before you know it, I kind of got over it. I realized, hey, it's kind of fun answering questions on topics that you know about, and people seem to be pretty excited when you tell them that there's automation that can help them do their job. So I had lots of questions, and I started to slowly come out of my shell. But then what ended up happening is that, so as more and more engineers, the word spread, and again, primarily just word of mouth. I mean, I would help an engineer, perhaps an engineer would move off of the project that I was on to another project, and then they'd say, wait a second, what happened to all this automation that I used to have when I worked with Alex? And they would give me a call, and I'd say, oh, guess what? You can take this automation with you. I could work with you on your second project, and let me show you how to go off and run these functions. But so, yeah, I'd say between 2011 and 2012, it got to the point where I had more and more programs coming to me just through word of mouth, like Massachusetts, say, oh, I heard you have automation for helping me use Doors. And what started happening is that, I mean, I was excited to share that there's a better way with the automation, but at the same time, I was growing kind of tired of, because the automation, I mean, the functions that I was explaining were the same functions, which are already written. But to the people that are working different programs, to them, it was brand new. And so I was really excited by the fact we had this automation to share with other projects at Raytheon, but I was getting a little bit frustrated with the fact that every time it would take like maybe, I don't know, a week of my time to go through on another project, and I would keep repeating myself, and this wasn't a good recipe for kind of getting this out across the enterprise. So right around that time, I was able to meet, or I should say, get introduced to people that were outside of the Massachusetts area, because Raytheon brought in IBM Connections. So IBM Connections is basically it's like a social media platform which hooks up to your employee system, and so everybody at Raytheon, whether they knew it or not, had an account on the social media platform, which had many features, which some of them I'll talk about here. But in essence, through this platform, I met this person by the name of Allison Sheridan, who was actually leading kind of the social transformation at Raytheon, where she was in charge of rolling out this platform and making sure people were using it effectively. So, to long story short, it was her that kind of gave me a little bit 101, and some of the ideas that I got from Allison were that, well, instead of repeating myself over and over again to the various projects, why don't I just write down some of those things that I'm explaining? And so I started writing things down on this kind of collaborative space. And through Allison, I met others who worked in corporate broadcasting at Raytheon who told me, oh, there's this channel, kind of like a YouTube, just internal to Raytheon, that where we could create you a channel, Alex, and you could upload your tutorials, which for me was like gold. I was like, really? So, I mean, and again, without a doubt, with all the things that I have going on and I have done, creating little video tutorials around those things that you are good at, that other people want to know how to do, is just a tremendous way of sharing knowledge and best practices, period. I mean, so the videos, so between the videos and the ability to put information into a common place and share it with people, so this was the first step in me being able to see that, hey, I could write this down once, and next time I work with another project, I mean, I'm not saying that I wouldn't explain stuff, but at least I have additional content that I can point them to. So that was very beneficial. And so as part of using this social platform, and again, here I have IBM Connections, but really this could be any social platform. Just in my case, well, I think in general, I recommend if you're going to be using any sort of social platform, maybe even LinkedIn, that you work on your profile, because this is the first thing that people are going to see when you ask them to perhaps connect with you and join your network. So certainly get a picture on there. One of the features here that's available on Connections is this kind of My Links page. So when people land on your profile, not only can you include an about me and like where you went to college and basically anything you want, but you can also include links to websites that you want people to go to, or websites that you want associated kind of with your name. And so working on my profile was very useful. So I was able to kind of update my profile, include my picture, about me. What's nice in IBM Connections is that if you don't answer the question of what high school you went to, it just doesn't show up. So it's not like there's an empty field that shows up. And so one of the things that I started doing is I created my profile and I started inviting people into my network that I knew. So again, the IBM Connections instance at Raytheon is called RSpace. And so in essence, it's people that I've worked with. I just started really inviting everybody that I knew, because what happens is that because it's being a connections platform, when you have people in your network, you get notified by the tool, like what they're posting, what they have going on. So this became a tremendous way of keeping tabs on what is actually going on across Raytheon. And likewise, if I had a message, I could just post it to my wall and it would go out to everybody. So anyways, basically building on your profile and networking is a great way of doing it. And likewise, on your links, I've got links on here to the DOORS training videos that I record at Raytheon. So you can include some links here as well. Now, so kind of having to do with video slightly, but the other huge piece of RSpace and the ability to get information out was the creation of a wiki page. So this is really what Allison recommended I do after she kind of listened to my challenges of trying to get information out across the company and not wanting to repeat myself. So I created a wiki page, which again is a feature of Connections. And I'm proud to say for about a year, I think maybe in 2012, my wiki page became the most visited wiki page at Raytheon. So it was sitting at #1. And since then, I've moved down to the 3rd spot. But I am really excited because on the most liked, which is a result of people actually clicking the like button on various pages, right now I'm sitting at #2. And I'm really hoping that by the end of the year, we will take over the #1 spot. So again, I appreciate people clicking the like button if they actually like the page. But it's kind of a cool feature of Connections because you can, if you're just getting started using Connections at your company, you could see what are the top 5 most liked wiki pages and top 5 most visited. And so I created a Getting the Most Out of Doors wiki page at Raytheon, and in essence, have been building it out for the past 2 or 3 years. And I mean, videos are great, but you can embed videos in the wiki page and then put images around them, you can put text around them, and of course the wiki can have a whole, so I have a whole entire organization scheme where it's the main landing page and then sub pages. So it's just, and again, you just kind of start editing. I mean, I think it's pretty intuitive, and it gives you a centralized place. And again, the whole point is that on a wiki page, you can have this be a team, a collaborative effort. People can go in, they can collaborate, and so this has been really, really useful to be able to point people to a centralized place where, again, there's videos, there's information, there's images. So the wiki page was a big, big help. The other huge aspect of being able to get ideas and best practices out and connecting people is this concept of a community. So at Raytheon, some coworkers of mine started the Doors, started the Doors community. I don't even know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not sure, but I asked to become a co-owner, and they let me in. So I've really kind of made this my central hub for, well, first of all, for letting engineers know when I come across people that are using Doors at Raytheon or systems engineers that should be using Doors, they just don't know the benefits. I just send them an invite to the community. So I'm excited to say I think now we're past 2,500 members. And in the community, there's so many awesome features. I mean, there's a forum. So for one, people go in and ask questions in the community. I think, and of course, IBM Connections itself has its own releases with new and new features being added. So I know over the past year, the ability to post videos as questions and answers to the forum, I mean, which is awesome for me. So I get a question in, the tool notifies me, I can create a quick little video and post it as an answer. So in case you can't tell, I really love the whole video, audio recording myself. So forum is great. A blog is another tremendous way of getting information. So I use blogging quite frequently. When I have an update on maybe like the next release of our DXL script library, I would post to the community, and there's a way to basically send a newsletter to the members, and so I do that from time to time. And you can upload files. So when I go to presentations like IBM symposiums, I take the slides and then I post them to the community. And there's lots of things you can do, but one area I'm working on right now is activities. So activities is a way to create kind of a checklist of sorts of what actions you want people to go through. So if this is a repetitive task, you can create an activity, and then others at Raytheon, I mean, either I can assign the activity to somebody. For example, I want somebody to set up a Doors architecture. So I just take that activity checklist, I assign it to my coworker, and they have a way of going through it and leaving notes and so forth. So anyways, I'm excited to be starting with activities. I mean, I've kind of dabbled with it, but now I'm trying to use more of it. So a community is just a great way of bringing people together. And again, blogging is more kind of one way. Wikis are multi-way. And there's like this important bookmarks feature. We can say for people in the community, what are the bookmarks they want to be aware of? So again, just bringing people to, I mean, it's amazing. There's so many people that, again, that whatever area of Raytheon they're at, they have their, I mean, so here's my Doors person, this is my expert. But then when they realize that there's a centralized hub of experts and beginners and intermediates all sharing their knowledge and collaborating through a collaborative platform, it's just amazing because it helps people connect. I mean, I work hard in getting myself out of the loop. So, I mean, I like working with people from all sorts of different backgrounds and experiences, but without a doubt, I mean, if I meet somebody that's been writing DXL for 10 years, I mean, that's really exciting to me because that's a level of expertise we can exchange and kind of feed ideas off of one another that I might not have with somebody that's opening up doors for the first time. And so I just try and connect people in my network with one another that share similar levels of experience with the tools so they could talk to one another. And So it's just been, again, the community's been huge. And so for me, again, getting information about doors, connecting people, and being able to bring people together regardless of where they are in the organization. I mean, so needless to say, I'm a huge fan of IBM Connections for the ease with which it's allowed me to get my voice out there. And again, I don't think it's IBM Connections per se, but just some sort of social platform where you can connect with others, post your thoughts, post information, bring people together. And again, I'm just very excited by what Connections has done for me, but likewise, I try and kind of just lead by example and let others at Raytheon who are interested in sharing their knowledge. So I try and mentor people around the use of Connections and other social tools to kind of mix that in and try and get your message out there. So again, the big takeaway here is we can all be so much more productive when we collaborate. And you might not realize, but even, I mean, so Doors is, again, my tool of choice, but I mean, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, anything. There's just so many tips that you might be aware of, you take for granted, but like I said, if I flip open your video recording software and get that information out there, I think that's a great way of getting information out. So I think that's about all I had. So, Mark, are there any questions?
Yes, Alex, thank you so much. Before I start asking questions, I just want to let the attendees know the process as far as Q&A. So if you want to go ahead and submit a question, do so in the control panel under questions. I'll receive them, and then I'll ask them to Alex specifically. If we get a lot of questions, what I will do is I will ping you back and let you know that I'm going to ask your question next so you can pay attention to Alex's answer. So, Alex, let me see here what we got going on. One question came in, and maybe this is more of an IBM question. It has to do with DXL and finding tutorials or books. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot out there that's written. What I've done for you folks, the attendees, is I've sent in the chat window all the web links of the recordings for the Enlightenment series. And for Doors, there were a number of DXL webinars that we have done, so feel free to utilize that as maybe a mechanism to learn more about DXL. So as far as actual books, unfortunately, there's not a lot out there that's been published. One question that came up, Alex, is the loss of DXL and Next Generation, how that's going to affect you if you're going to be going to Next Generation. Do you have any comment about that?
Oh, sure. Well, so I will provide my input on the first question as well, in that as far as the resources. One of the things that I did as almost kind of like preparation for giving this talk, just because it was easy enough for me to do, is I actually created, so IBM has a DeveloperWorks website, which is using IBM Connections as the platform. So I created a Classic Doors community. This is very recent, like I'd say in the past month. So I created a Classic Doors community on DeveloperWorks, which you can find with the intention of gathering resources that I find valuable about Doors and DXL. So basically there's links. So in essence, it's like a little sandbox of sorts. So the things that I covered in this talk today are, I mean, little examples are available in the Classic Doors community with the intention of people that are interested in learning more about Classic Doors and DXL that go off, join the community, post content, ask questions. I mean, so like I said, it's kind of a side project of mine that now that I've learned everything based on what I've done at Raytheon, I mean, it's pretty easy for me to kind of moderate the external community, which is available to others. So as far as DXL and Doors, I would check into that community, become a member. And then as far as DXL and Next Generation, so I'm still in the camp of Doors 9 combined with the DXL that we've written does everything I need. So there's certain aspects of Doors Next Generation I'm pretty excited about and looking forward to using. But in terms of, I mean, programs that I support, I'm very content in Doors 9. I have no plans of moving to Doors Next Generation. I have taken couple of classes on HTML5, CSS, JavaScript, just to kind of get a quick 101, but really I'm very much enjoying my DXL developments and kind of getting the DXL automation in the hands of existing and new programs at Raytheon. So I mean, I'm not at the point where I want to start developing anything in JavaScript, and really having developed a lot of automations in the Doors Classic realm, I mean, I'm actually more excited by helping influence where IBM goes in the way of getting built-in functionality into both Doors Next Generation, Quality Manager, Team Concert. I mean, I have next to no interest to extending the Jazz platform, and instead I am excited in seeing and helping influence where it goes with out-of-the-box functionality. So hopefully that answers that question.
Great, thanks, Alex. Next question is, can you elaborate on recording steps for an activity, and what tool do you use to record videos?
Sure. So the recording the steps for an activity, this is something that, again, I've probably created like 2 activities, not much, one of them this week. But in essence, there's an activity section in IBM Connections where you can, I mean, it's a separate area. You could certainly read about it. I'm pretty sure there are some videos on YouTube on how to use IBM Connections. But at the end of the day, it's really just a way of creating a checklist and making it into a template. And what's cool is that in your checklist, not only do you have checkboxes, but you can include images, you can include sections, you can include bookmarks. And what I really like is that once you have that activity created, either you can assign it to somebody, which basically creates a copy of it and allows him or her to not only mark off put in like check marks, but they could leave comments. And again, it all goes into the IBM Connections stratosphere, so that way other people can, I mean, everything becomes searchable, and so it's just a great way of being able to document what steps that you take and others will take again. And as far as recording, when I first started doing these tutorials, I used Camtasia Studio, like a full version, and then I realized that I'm too busy to tinker with like the video formatting. So what I really need is just to record my screen and be done with it. So luckily for me, there's something we have at Raytheon called Camtasia Relay, which is it's kind of a downgraded version where I mean, you basically just hit the record button and it does the audio video, and then when you're done, you just click submit and it goes off to the server, and I get an email a few hours later saying my video in a perfectly formatted state is ready to be uploaded to my channel. So I grab the video and upload it. So, but Camtasia Studio is kind of the core software.
Is it possible to write script with DXL to automate creating reports from Doors and email to participants who wish to get them in pre-scheduled intervals?
So I think anything is possible with DXL. I mean, in essence, the whole entire client that IBM releases is built on DXL. So again, I think anything is possible. Personally, I have not written any DXL that sends emails, but God knows I've written a lot of DXL that has to do with reporting. So reporting can be done, but I have not had any personal experience with actually automating the sending of emails. I do know that for those that are using the change management component of Classic Doors, the change proposal system, that does have a built-in capability you can hook that up to your email system such that when you propose changes, apply changes, that automatically will send an email to people.
How did you get management to buy in and funding to set all this up?
Oh, yes. I love that question. Whoever asked that, thank you for asking that question. So I did not get management buy-in in that that has been an ongoing challenge. So this is something that I just started doing as part of my day job because in essence, I started with getting programs that would give me funding. I would say, okay, well, give me a week's worth of funding, and I will help kind of deploy this automation and show you how to use it. So it just became part of little steps by little steps. I think the big breakthrough was that when I realized there was this video recording software out there, I talked to the program that was giving me the funding, and I said, how about I record every single one of our sessions? And they said, sure. So that was, I think, in 2012. So over the span of like a month and a half, I recorded 40 videos, during which time I showed them how to basically use the automation, and those videos went to my channel. So it just became part of my everyday routine as part of the funding that I was getting from the various projects to help them out. I would just, again, instead of recording these, well, recording the videos was a huge plus, but instead of just creating like how-tos in Word that get lost in emails, I just started writing that information in blogs and in wikis on the social platform. Yeah, so as far as getting management buy-in and a budget, this has been an ongoing challenge. I'd say primarily because being a software developer, I mean, I'm really excited about just kind of tinkering and producing solutions and getting them out there. Less excited about kind of packaging this up in a nice format that could explain to management the benefits. So I've really used the power of my network, just kind of infecting people with my enthusiasm and having them go off to their management and say, wow, this is something we should probably get Alex more funding and more people and so forth. But so that has been an ongoing challenge that I don't think I have the perfect solution for. But I do believe that with this connections product, it makes it so easy for the everyday person to just work it right into your, I mean, this is part of what you do. But to be honest, there have been plenty of cases where I've put in my own time where I would have conversations with people for maybe like 3 hours after I clocked out, just because I was so passionate over explaining how I and the automation we developed can help them out.
Next question, Alex, that is there still certifications for DOORS 9.6?
Okay, so I do know there's an IBM certification out there for, you could be a certified deployment professional for version 9, period. I don't think there's anything, so I guess, Mark, I would deflect that one to you. I mean, is there any certifications outside of the classic DOORS 9 certification? I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, I don't have the direct answer for that, unfortunately, Alex. So the person who asked it, if you want to reply to my follow-up email, I will get the answer for you. So next question, do any of your DOORS 9.x currently connect to the JAS platform at Raytheon? If so, do your DXLs enhance or hinder that connection?
So I'm not aware of, or at least I haven't worked on any programs where DOORS 9 and DNG are connected. And but I would think that I think the majority of a DXL is completely self-encapsulated within DOORS 9, so I don't think it would care whether or not you're connected to JAS or not, because it's completely encapsulated within the DOORS 9 product. But yeah, I myself have not, I don't think I've worked in an environment where they're connected. But I have, so over the past 2 years, I've done a lot of work in the CLM environment because we've actually moved the DXL scripts into Rational Team Concert. So I use RQM to write test cases, and I'm really excited to basically start using DNG and the diagramming capability to get a better story going between myself and developers, basically figure the use cases for what the DXL is supposed to do. So, since we're on the subject, I'll just mention that in the Vegas conference, I'll be speaking on kind of the use of a CLM suite for driving DOORS and DXL best practices across Raytheon. Small plug for Vegas.
Okay, great, thanks. The next question is lengthy. I'll read it. Hopefully you can answer. I'll save it just in case I need to read it again. And that is this. I can create a column using library DXL functions that collects and displays data from multiple modules. I don't want to have multiple modules open for this work. Also, the only time I can see user-defined attributes, not just system attributes, is when I specify the module specifically. So when I choose all open modules, I can only see the system attributes and have to open the two other modules before I open the risk analysis module. I don't want to have to do this. It works with the modules all closed when I choose specific format module. Would it be easier to combine the three DXL files into a single one, or is there a better way to do this?
Okay, so I do have the answer. And so in short, I think the explanation was talking about the analysis wizard. So the analysis wizard in Doors is a really great built-in feature that allows you to pull what is at the other end of the link into the same display. So if you're sitting in one module and there's links coming in from maybe you're sitting in the system spec and there's links from subsystem specs, it allows you to pull them in. But again, one of the limitations is that if you want to be able to pull, let's say, verification methods from 3 modules that are linking into the module you're sitting in, there's really no good way of doing it using the built-in capability. So what I recommend doing is using the analysis wizard, selecting all formal modules, so not even the open ones, just selecting all of them, and selecting object text as the attribute you want to pull in, which would create the layout DXL you need to pull in object text. And then it's literally as simple as right-clicking on the column that Doors creates, going into the properties, navigating to the current DXL that's there, and all you need to do is just replace the object text basically word with the name of the attribute you want to pull in. So if you replace object text with verification method, click save, voila, your column will all of a sudden show verification method. And of course, if you want, you can copy that line, or I think it's like 2 lines, and then paste them. So once you get kind of the straw man created for you, where you select all formal modules, and hopefully you have things divided up into meaningful link modules. That's another big pain point that helps you analyze your impact and traceability by having things segregated into link modules. But so I recommend running the analysis wizard with having all formal modules selected with the right link module, and then after the traceability column is in place, going in, and like I said, you really don't need to be a developer at all. So just go in, find where it says object text, and replace it with the name of the attribute you'd like to pull in. And then, of course, anytime you're using analysis wizard and layout columns, you have to make sure you save it into a view. Otherwise, you're going to do it all over again. So just make sure you do a view save as. And so I think that's the workaround I've been using, and I've been showing it to engineers around me, and they seem to like it.
Next question, Alex. Do you use RPE to export documentation? If so, have you written DXL scripts to automate the export of documentation from Doors Classic?
Another great question. I do not use RPE because I've had some wonderful developers who have written a publishing function to Word that basically can do what RPE does. It's just easier to use from my perspective. But again, I mean, if I didn't have my function, then I would recommend using RPE, because I've certainly worked with enough people to know that the built-in exporting capabilities to Doors are really nothing too exciting. If you need to have like formalized documentation with a cover page that has like revision history, release dates, the author, into headers, footers, table of contents, figures, the whole kind of 9 yards. It's kind of painful to put that together without RPE or a DXL script. So again, I'm lucky because we have a DXL script for this. This is one of the few scripts I have never really touched. It's one of the more complicated ones we have, so I've always had the privilege of having developers that have done the coding. I've just supplied the requirements. So, but if I didn't have a DXL script, I would recommend using RPE, and maybe even, I know there's, I think they're called GEBS reporting. There's a business partner out of Romania that I know they're really, really knowledgeable with not just RPE, but they've actually developed almost like dashboards that make it so much easier to get started with RPE and to create templates. So like so they're really big experts. I've met them at some of the conferences, and I really liked what they had because it really breaks down this kind of a big barrier to get into when you're starting with RPE to figure out how to create templates and all this other stuff, which got to be kind of time consuming.
Can you talk about the recordings, the videos? There's some people who still would like to know more about that, so I'm hoping that you'd be able to, readdress it again. How you do that, Sure. What tools you use, that sort of thing.
Well, so basically, I think, whatever company you work for, you have to figure out, what you're allowed to use, not allowed to use, if there's any restrictions. But all you really need, again, is a tool that records your screen, records your audio, get a good microphone, and I think the main thing I'll mention is that, having been doing this for about 4 years, I've certainly learned some of what's effective, not effective, and actually creating the videos. So I would say you're better off creating really short 3 or 4 minute videos targeted to specific tasks. It's better to have a big video library that you then string together into checklists or something else. And so basically, just have some sort of objective right at the beginning of your video. Say what it is you're going to cover. Again, I learned the hard way that if you just start talking, people are like, okay, what are you going to tell me? Why am I listening? So tell people what they're going to learn, and then explain the problem and the solution. So that's kind of a good format to tell them what you're going to explain to them, kind of show what the problem is, or explain the problem, dive into the solution, and then summarize what you just covered. And again, I would recommend making short videos and then putting them out into a place that works. Something else that's worked well for me is that, I've certainly developed a lot of knowledge, but it's kind of difficult to figure out, okay, what's my next video on? So instead of trying to just make this stuff up, really cater to your clients. In my role, I help architect doors projects. The most fun part of my job is going into an existing program that has never really had a knowledgeable doors architect set things up, so it's less than ideal, and kind of re-architecting things. And so depending on the needs of the projects I'm working with, that's how I get my ideas. So if they have a need, I create a video and I give it to them, so that way, that's the beauty. If you have at least one person that's interested in your video, you create it for that one person, but because it's a video and because hopefully you have a channel, it automatically, that always happens. If one person has a question, chances are there's other people that would like to know the answer. And so I recommend, again, instead of just haphazardly picking out things that are of interest to you, focus on your clients and create videos targeted towards what they need. And then, so that's a good way of doing it.
Great, excellent. And also for the attendees on the webinar, if you look in your chat window there, I've copied and pasted all the web links, and also it'll be on the follow-up email that I send. If anybody would like the actual .wmv file, I archive all these. I have every one of them. There's a few hundred of them that I have myself that I'm more than happy to share with you. If you want to, have your own repository for your own internal use, feel free to ask me. The panel is open, so feel free to ask a question if you want to. I can read it immediately to Alex. In the meantime, while we wait for potential questions to roll in, I just want to remind everyone that this webinar is being recorded, and it will also be archived. So feel free to look for that. So Alex, no more questions. I think we can wrap up. Anything you'd like to say before we end the webinar?
No, just a big thank you for having me, and just want to mention that I do expect to be presenting in Vegas on the use of basically Doors Next Generation, RQM, and RTC for the development of DXL and Doors templates, and really, so that's kind of this has been the how do I get the word out about the automation and Doors best practices, and that'll be more technical in terms of, okay, how do we use the CLM suite for kind of the development of this stuff and collaboration. So,
Thanks, Alex. So the webinar is going to be concluding here. Everyone have a great rest of week and weekend. Next week is Thanksgiving, and we hope everyone enjoys their dinners with their families. And with that said, the webinar has now concluded, and goodbye all. Take care.